A utopia is, quote, a place of ideal perfection, especially in laws, government, and social conditions, end quote. It's almost universally recognized that utopias don't exist, and no society can be perfect. Despite this, I've tried my best efforts to create a utopian society. I will structure with 5 pillars that uphold the nation's status as a utopia. But first, we have to discuss how a utopia would come into existence in the first place. In making this utopia, I took the idea that a perfect society would have a not-so-perfect history. Karl Marx's conflict theory states that, quote, society is in a state of perpetual conflict because of competition for limited resources, end quote. Conflict theory focuses on violence in society, mostly that of the class differences and how the upper class exploit the lower class. Now that we have a theory to build the history of the utopia from, we can figure out the construction of the nation as a whole. But where will it be? I have focused on the Messinian salinity crisis that happened 6 million years ago for this, where the Mediterranean Sea almost dried up. We'll dry the Mediterranean Sea partially to create some new land for the utopia. With this new land, the surrounding nations are likely to expand into it or invest into the land's exploitation. After all the nations have expanded into this new land, there's some conflict between the nations for the minerals and resources that could be used. After some shuffling of the territories, the people in the lands become tired with the constant warfare and decide to make their own nation that's easily defendable due to the geographic position and sudden drain of fighters on all sides. Due to the mixing of cultures, and no reason for another name, we will name the nation Stuvaria. Each sector of the nation joined at different times as listed here. Symbolic interactionism, developed by George Herbert Mead, focuses on symbols building society by giving people meaning to life. Several symbols can be made into Stuvaria to give the nation and its people purpose. The helix represents different cultures uniting and forming the basis of the nation. The flag on the dune represents the conflicts that were done during, before, and after the creation of Stuvaria, showing Stuvaria still stands after all the attempts to take it back down. Finally, the microchip represents electronics and robots that the nation has, uses, and sells. The nation of Stuvaria is founded on those ideals. And finally, the utopian government can be created off of it. Emil Durkheim, the creator of the functionalist theory, was interested in how society could be stable and social order can be maintained. Functionalism believes that each part of society exists to keep it stable and able to be expanded. This can be applied to the utopia as such in the government. Stuvaria is a direct democracy, meaning the people can vote directly on laws proposed by public petitions and advisors that lead departments of the government, which are elected by the people. These advisors are elected every 3 years, and the departments run their relative parts of the nation to carry out government promises and law. Below is the list of departments. Enforcement of laws must also take place and will be carried out as such. Criminal law is enforced by guards of social workers and military. Courts settle civil disputes and lawsuits. Departments run by advisors fulfill government obligations as it fits bills written in department affiliation with issues. And I wrote some example laws to fulfill Stuvaria. Government and election tampering is illegal. Police brutality is strictly prohibited. Political parties are not given government-based platforms. Collective punishment is prohibited in all environments, including work and school. The state may limit a business's power in the nation at its will. The subjects taught in Stuvaria include all regular core classes, including math, languages, history, and sciences. Additional required classes include economics and government. Differences in the school system include no standardized testing, no merit-based education systems, quote, education should be an instrument to balance out social inequality, end quote, individual guidance, psychological counseling, less homework, and school starting at the age of 7 and is required until the age of 16. I got most of that from Finn. The goal of the education system is to prepare students for basic early life and give the opportunity to go deeper into studies they enjoy. The population of Stuvaria has a steady growth, preventing overpopulation and underpopulation. The people are very urbanized, but the land outside of the cities is used as altered agricultural districts to feed citizens. A majority of houses have indoor farms to feed themselves. Private transportation is rare and replaced with universal public transport planned around jobs and convenience of travel, examples being between cities and distant districts. Stuvaria produces electronics and robots, which function as farmers, miners, and manufacturers. Exports of electronics and robots are Stuvaria's main sources of income. Citizens work at jobs like AI management and oversight, science, or other fields that require creative minds or basic fixing. Jobs receive an almost equal wage with small differences based on the importance of the job. 90% of Stuvaria is owned directly by the state, with most of that being agricultural districts. Small businesses are permitted in Stuvaria. To combat inequality, the government mandates and inspects wages, while also providing people's needs, with money from their wages being able to be used on luxury. Money comes back to the government when people buy luxuries with that money from government-owned businesses or through corporations. The military shuts down organized crime rings. Others are pursued and detained with non-lethal and reasonable force by guards. All criminals receive mental evaluation. Criminals get time in front of a jury and their due process before being put in a rehabilitation detention center or on death row. Look, I'm making a utopia, not a morally correct system. People who are bad for society as a whole would be outright eliminated to keep society perfect. Okay? Besides the existing laws and death rows for crime, there are no systems that could control citizenry. Finally, after the utopia is finished, we can finalize some national details. With the name being officialized as the Democratic State of Bavaria, built by the people, built for the people, 10 million citizens, and in the dried up West Mediterranean. And the flag represents multiple things, each of its symbols and colors. The green on the top represents the grand agriculture. The white in the middle represents the work that's left for humanity. The red and blue helix represents cultures intertwining together. The blue bottom left represents the technology and the robots, and the bottom right yellow represents. In the end, Stuvaria is a democratic social state with a lot of sci-fi and visionary cultures. With this culture and style, would you want to live as a Stuvaria? And no, there isn't an active fate.